Hello and welcome to another episode of Northside Now. This is the podcast where we take you on a tour through all of the ministries and the latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. My name is Patrick, and with me as always are my co-hosts Glenn Miller and Kevin Bryant.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
What's up?
Hope everyone's well.
Yeah.
Welcome back to school.
That doesn't mean as much to me now as it used to.
Yeah. The only thing it means to me is that hopefully within the next 100 days, we'll have cool weather.
Yeah.
Or cooler weather.
100 days. When does that take us? That's what, 3 months?
It's past Christmas, I think.
Hey, it will be 80 degrees in December. I'm calling it now.
Well, you know, last year we had the big freeze right around Christmas. So
we did.
There's hope.
It's really funny you mentioned that. I was talking about that like 2 days ago with somebody, how Christmas Eve was pretty horrible.
Yeah.
Because people were complaining online they couldn't make their brownies and their special candies because of the rolling brownouts.
It was a good day for plumbers.
You'd think
It's the worst day ever for plumbers.
Yeah. Wow, that seems like a million years ago, but yet it wasn't.
It does.
It won't be long before Christmas will be here soon, I guess.
I'm dreaming, oh, I...
Christmas time is here.
Yeah, you know.
Well, Kevin, Patrick has told me that he has been to see the Barbie movie.
I have.
So
Have you seen the Barbie movie?
I have not. I have not put my money towards the $1 billion.
We need to all contribute.
And I don't know if I have anything pink to wear. I think you got to dress up, don't you?
I did not wear pink, and I think I was the only person in the entire theater not wearing
Were
pink.
you the only male in the entire theater?
No.
What?
I mean, it was a good...
I've heard,
it was...
This is like
it
a
was a
dress-up
good mix,
movie.
yeah.
I've heard this.
Yeah,
It was, yeah.
I'm dying to take Barbie to see Barbie. I've been wanting to do that, but she's not interested.
She might get people coming up getting her autograph.
Well, you know,
If
she's
that word got
never liked that whole bar. You know, it's always been, she's had to deal with that her whole life. So she's really not that. I bet we'll see it at some point, but I don't know if it'll be at the movies. But it's obvious people are going back to the movies.
Yeah, and it is definitely a nostalgia movie for people that grew up with Barbie. It's not as much of a kid's movie as I was expecting it to.
Yeah,
it deals
I have
with
heard
some pretty
Adult thoughts and
there is some
concepts.
innuendo and stuff as far as like that kind of adult content, but it's more like dealing with like what it means to be alive and some really kind of like heady concepts that I think are going to go over a lot of kids' heads, you know.
I have heard that it's not necessarily one to take the kids. So I've heard it's funny. There's some funny parts to it and stuff.
You know, I've never been the biggest Barbie fan, but
But-
it was enjoyable.
All right, but you are a collector, so let's see. I'm about to mess up, okay, Kevin? So just
Thanks
write
for
this
turning toward me as
Just he's giving you the heads up that you
Put
might
this-
have to edit this out.
Put this on paper.
Yeah.
That Glenn messed up on this date.
Okay.
It is we're 3 minutes and 31 seconds into the podcast.
Okay.
All right. So
I got it.
Patrick, is Barbie an action figure?
Wow, we stumped him.
I'm
we
thinking-
stumped him.
It's coming. Get ready. It's coming. He knows.
Yes.
He knows. He knows.
He knows the right answer,
he
but he doesn't
knows.
want to say it.
Because they're the same thing. Action figures and dolls are essentially the same thing. They just called them action figures so that boys would buy them because they were all called dolls originally.
But is Barbie an action figure?
Yeah.
I mean,
technically.
Do you collect Barbies?
No, I
Then
don't.
you're not an action figure
Not
collector.
anymore.
To be an action figure collector does not mean you have to collect every action figure.
Well, my G.I. Joes when I was a kid were Barbie sized.
Oh, yeah, the big ones.
Yeah, the big ones for, till I got a little bit older. But the big ones were real popular in the 60s and early 70s. And I had a couple of, I had to do with the judo chop and the beard. And I can't remember their names.
And that's when the term action figure started, was because they were trying to market them towards boys, but boys were like, we don't want to play with dolls. And so they called them action figures, which sounded a lot cooler. But it's essentially the same thing. It's,
I don't know that we ever had the name brand. We always had the knockoff dolls, but interesting phenomena.
Yeah, so Barbie's making it big, Congratulations to Barbie and Oppenheimer and Sound of Freedom and Indiana Jones and all the rest of you that are really kicking it in the movie world right now. Way to go, movie people.
Movies at the movie theater are back.
Well, we have a special guest in the podcast room today, and he is our interim pastor, preaching pastor, Brian Lee. And he was around some G.I. Joes.
Yeah.
And we're going to learn about that a little bit. But
yeah, I'd never really thought about the unique challenges of church, serving in a church on a military base. But he's going to talk about that, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to learn that he's not from Mississippi, which is what I thought. So let's get quiet and bring old Brian into the podcast room. We're here today with Brian Lee. Welcome, Brian.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian was making a comment about the podcast room there, Patrick. He had a really descriptive word for us.
Yeah. Institutional. I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was fitting.
Well, I clarified it by saying it was at least not institutional green.
That's right. And there's far too many corners in here to be institutional.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So too many sharp edges.
That's right.
So Brian is serving as our teaching pastor and preaching pastor interim right now.
Yes.
And retired from being a pastor in the Baptist tradition, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And so we are very thankful that you are helping us out.
Well, it's been my honor to be able to do it. It really has been.
So he's finally getting around the facility and has drifted into the podcast room.
Yeah, this is the first time I've been back in this area. I didn't know it was back here.
There's an upstairs too.
Oh,
that's
cool.
that's the way we like it. Keep it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that any of this over exists.
There's church members wandering around for years we haven't found.
Yeah, if you bump into someone, they may have just been here for a while.
He'd rescue.
It's like the labyrinth. They just get lost in here.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, our whole facility is a prayer labyrinth.
Yeah.
So, well, I know you've introduced yourself to so many people, and you taught Sunday school beforehand as a member of the church,
right,
and all that. However, there's probably a lot of folks who maybe have not heard your story or know kind of your background. So tell us a little bit, how did you get started in ministry, and what did your ministry look like for all those years?
Okay, well, let me just actually back up a little bit before that. I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, as an only child to Christian parents. Came to faith as an 8-year-old, but just sort of drifted. I went to church on Sunday morning, kind of glad when it was over, get back to life. And it stayed that way pretty much until early high school. And I went through what I would call a renewal experience. Started taking my faith more seriously. My parents still went to church on Sunday mornings, but I would drive myself to church on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights and all kinds of other things. And the big moment came when our phone rang one night, and it was our pastor. Well, our pastor never called our house for anything, especially not for me. But this phone call was for me.
Oh, wow.
And after a few pleasantries, he asked if I would be willing to serve as the youth pastor during Youth Week.
Oh, wow.
Well, I'd always been really safe about that. I was usher in the balcony where I could sort of hide and stay in the background.
Yeah.
But, he asked me, my parents, I guess, had always taught me to go along with what adults told you all to do. And
especially the pastor, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. That's right. So I said yes. And that led to me preaching my first sermon as a 17-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And it went amazingly well. So much so that it started the wheels rolling in my mind about all of it. And that summer, prior to my senior year, I had a job where I was isolated 8 hours a day by myself doing what it was I was doing, which gave me a lot of time to think about this. Yeah. And my problem was that all the testimonies I'd ever heard about people being called into the ministry were things like, well, I didn't want to do it, but God broke my arm and made me surrender to the ministry. That's how it's usually phrased.
Surrender.
My problem was I wanted to do it, and I thought it was maybe not right. So I ended up telling God that if he didn't want me in it, he was going to have to stop me because I felt like that's what I wanted to do. And by the time I told church leaders, they were, well, we've been waiting on you.
Oh, wow.
They saw it,
Yeah.
And I, went to college, began to prepare, and met my wife, Clella, at Belmont, what was then college in Nashville.
Okay.
And as a junior in college, I had my first opportunity to be a pastor. Mm-hmm. So at 21 years old, I became pastor of a small church in the Mount Juliet area.
Okay.
Which was wonderful. Gave me a chance to cut my teeth and figure it out, and finished college there, finished seminary there. And so that's how I got started in all this.
So does Belmont still have a seminary?
Well, no, Belmont was the college. I went to seminary at Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky.
All right. Because I didn't think Belmont had one, and I was thinking,
no. So. I had a religion psychology double major.
Yeah. See, I'm learning something today because of all these years. I thought you were grew up in Mississippi for some reason.
I've driven through Mississippi.
Okay, all right. So yeah, you're a Tennessee guy.
Nobody admits to having grown up in Mississippi.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty good. So what happened then after seminary and you kind of get your start? Did you go to do the typical several churches and then you kind of got to one, or did you go and stay somewhere for a long time?
Well, after the church in Mount Juliet, which I was there for 6 years, we moved to Augusta, Georgia.
Okay.
And started pastoring a church that had only been in existence, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years. So it was a new church start in a community close to Fort Gordon, which is the training base, one of the training bases for the U.S. Army and Signal Corps. And boy, you talk about a shift of gears. In the space of about 6 months, half my congregation transitioned.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the constant movement of the military. And it was also a multi-ethnic neighborhood, and that was now a new experience for me. So that was a stretching 4 years that we spent there, and I finished my doctoral program during that time, and then moved to Fayetteville, North Carolina, to pastor a church where Fort Bragg is located.
I was going to say another military town.
Yes. And shockingly, 25 years.
Wow.
I stayed there.
Wow.
Raised our kids there. Wonderful experience. Again, a lot of different kinds of people from all over the place. Lots of church backgrounds, no backgrounds whatsoever. So it was a growing time for me as a person and as a pastor. And we're very grateful. My wife eventually came on staff with me.
Oh, wow.
She served for a while in the area of discipleship and outreach and Sunday school work and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then toward the end, she transitioned to being the worship leader in our church. And after 25 years, you begin to wonder, is this where I'm going to stay until the end or whatever, and just had a growing sense that there was something else. And so in 2013, ended up in a church in the Birmingham, Hoover area. Okay. That was a different kind of church than I'd been used to, not a military church.
Yeah.
One more of a church that was similar to what I'd grown up in.
Yeah.
It gave me a chance to work with a larger staff. Not so many things were on my plate all the time, which was good.
Yeah.
And probably would have stayed there until about now, but then COVID hit. And COVID was a big deal. Stressful, extremely stressful.
Yeah.
And I ended up kind of determining that for my sake, for the church's sake, it was time to retire.
Yeah.
And that brought us to Jackson.
Cool. Now, when you were in Augusta, did you get to go play golf over there?
No, but I did get to go to the Masters tournament in 1986.
Okay.
Which happened to be the last time Jack Nicklaus won.
Oh, wow.
That'd be a good one.
That was that famous Sunday charge he had to win the thing. And I'm telling you, it's beautiful on television. It is incredible live. You just cannot imagine how beautiful it is.
Yeah, it looks like it's really cool.
Yeah.
I wanted. That's on my bucket list.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a tough ticket to get, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. I figured, the pastors are in the Augusta area. Surely they just have like a pastor's golf day or something.
Well, I happen to have a member who, back before it became quite so popular, was on the permanent list.
Oh, wow.
So he had tickets every year.
Yeah.
So he gave me a day, and I went. McClellan and I went, and it was pretty cool.
Cool. What were the challenges that you faced in all of those Army base communities. Well, I mean, I know they're transitional and but what were some of the other, did you feel like there was a few other challenges that you placed? There's so many young people and different stuff that you might have run across that maybe you didn't run across in other typical churches?
Well, the thing that stands out other than you're kind of pastoring a parade, it's constantly changing, the stress of military life, and especially a place like Fort Bragg, where you've got the 82nd Airborne, you've got Special Forces troops. I can't tell you how many conversations I had with people that post-traumatic stress issues, a lot of marital stress when their spouse is gone and for maybe a deployment for a year or so, and then they come back and the spouse that's been home is used to doing it on their own, and the reintegration is tough. So there's just a lot of stress on military families, and we experience dealing with that quite frequently.
Yeah. I know that to be the case. And Jackson's not really a military town, but we have those Black Hawk helicopters in the air all the time. Yeah. So it kind of feels like one a lot.
Yeah, we could hear the howitzers going off at times, and it would rattle the windows, Well, that's Fort Bragg.
Yeah, Fort Bragg's big. I mean, it's 50, 60,000 people.
Oh, yeah.
Like that, so.
In fact, I remember one Christmas musical. It was in December. And this was before the age of cell phones. So all the guys had pagers. And they all went off at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Because the Panama thing was about to happen.
Yeah.
And so about 50 guys, they start leaving the sanctuary, leaving the choir. And, kids are crying. It was just it was incredible.
Yeah. Be a different deal for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is that movie, Navy SEALs? I think that happens the first one with Charlie Sheen in it, that happens at a wedding. All those beepers start going off and guys just start leaving. And all the women are like, what? So, So, as a pastor over all these years, what are some of your more favorite things to preach about? A book or the things that are just closer to your heart that you just get jazzed about getting to get in the pulpit and preach about?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that I could say that there's a single thing. There are times that I've preached through a book, although I tend to do that more in a Bible study setting. Short series that deal with things along the lines of spiritual nurture. In fact, this coming one that's coming up here at Northside is called Jesus-Shaped People.
Okay.
And we'll be talking about issues associated with being formed in the image of Christ for 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I really am looking forward to being able to share that.
Can you give us any sneak previews?
Yeah. On the 13th, one of the things that toward the end of the sermon, we'll be referring to a passage in Psalm 63 where David talks about thirsting and yearning for God. And that sense of desperation is what often fuels us. Not another promotion, another gadget, there's nothing else out there.
Yeah.
That's ultimately going to bring me to the kind of life that I'm needing outside of God and God alone.
Yeah. Cool.
One question I've had, you've been in ministry for a long time, and I imagine you've seen a few changes here and there.
Absolutely.
How do you relate sort of where, I don't know if this is Big C church, but church as a whole is in our culture? The last several weeks, this last month, you've had some pretty direct commentary on what the church is.
Yes.
And what it should be based on the model that we see in the early church days and lots of different things. I'd be curious if you have any commentary kind of on maybe we as a church, where we're missing it. You've spoken to this a little bit, but church attendance is down.
Yes.
We have COVID obviously as part of that, but just in general, there seems to be, especially the younger generations, we've had a lot of conversation around generational differences.
Right.
Z versus X versus millennials and all of those things. You've had the benefit of seeing things change.
Yes.
And what do you think about this time in which we find ourselves?
Well, I think the general tendency for most people is to say, oh my, it's just so terrible, and wish it were like it was back in the day.
Right.
But let's remember back in the day when we were in a church-based culture, or everything revolved around what was going on in church.
Yep.
church life was kind of like hygiene. You didn't think about it. You just did it. We went to church because you're supposed to go to church. You'd be embarrassed if you didn't go to church.
Right.
Now, it wasn't necessary that you actually become more like Jesus. You just went to church and you checked the box and you're done.
Right.
I'm not sure that's the good old days. Whereas now, as we're beginning to move out of a church-based culture, increasingly so, where not only is it okay not to go to church, and it's kind of like that's better for some people in their minds. It gives the church an opportunity to really show what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus in this world. And the contrasts ought to be quite stark. And it's not measured so much in terms of, I don't do all these bad things that you do. Rather is, because of the transforming work of God within me, I have access to a life you don't yet have. I wouldn't say it that way to them, obviously. But it starts to create hopefully, an attractiveness where people look at us and go, you got something. I don't have what you've got. You've got a foundation, an inner peace, a purpose. I want that. So this is an opportunity day, not a day to be bemoaning, wishing we could go back.
Yeah, I think that's very wise, and it's something that's connected with me in the last few years. And we've said here on this podcast so many times, it's about relationships. We've commented many times about how Paul used modern technology to spread the message. Technology obviously now is different, but the thought, I think, should be the same in terms of how do we connect with people?
Yes.
Attendance is going to look different. The way churches are structured looks different.
Less building centered.
Yeah.
So we've got huge opportunities, I think, for Northside to, I don't know if refocus is the right word, but keep that in mind, meditate on that. How do the next few years look?
Well, one of the things that I think is critical to keep in mind is that, Paul wrote to the Corinthians and told them that he'd become all things to all people so that by all possible means he could change some. And he mentioned that when he was with Jewish people, he did one thing, was with Gentile people, he did another. So if Paul felt comfortable adjusting methodology based on his audience, then we ought to be comfortable with that. Our problem sometimes is we get stuck in methodologies that once were very effective that are not necessarily as effective today. But because we're comfortable with them and we're used to them, we think that if we'll just be more dedicated and try harder, they'll work again. Well, they never worked. God worked through us in them. Well, the question for us then is, what is God wanting to do now? And what sort of methodological shifts do we need to make now to do that? And that's, how shall I put this well, the longer-term congregations that have had a longer history tend to struggle more with that than newer congregations. That doesn't mean they can't, but it just takes longer to make the shifts in their thinking because they're just used to it. It's understandable.
It is a mindset shift.
Yes.
To say, well, it used to work that way. Why should we change? Well, to be able to step outside of your current mindset, to see it in a different perspective. I've thought a lot about the hospitality team and what does it feel like to be a visitor here? How many of us have been a visitor in a church lately, the last 3 years, 5 years? What does that feel like? And I think if we have a connection with what that feels like, we can make decisions. This is just an example of how we speak the language of a visitor to someone.
I know of churches that have intentionally gone out and found someone who has no background whatsoever with a church and say, just come to church Sunday. And then after it's over, tell us what your experience was. Man, that can be eye-opening. And painful.
Ooh, we should do that. I like this idea.
I've done that in the past had teenagers that I knew outside of the church completely and had them come visit the youth group. And then kind of give that same report, kind of like secret shopper thing. And it is eye-opening, and it is painful, but it is useful information not so often. So, I love exactly what you were saying a while ago, because so many young pastors now and young church workers, and even church workers that maybe second career, they'd much rather get into a church plant or something startup than go into a long-term church that's been either in a denomination or been there for, 60, 70, 150 years, whatever, because they know things are a lot more pliable.
Well, it just takes longer.
Yeah. That's
the tendency is to want to start with methodology. You can't start there.
Yeah.
You have to start with, it's a heart issue. That I care more about the kingdom than anything else.
Yeah.
And then a philosophy shift where I'm not a ministry consumer, I'm a ministry provider.
Yeah.
Once those two shifts have happened, then you can start talking about methodological shifts.
Yeah.
But if you start with the methodology without having the other things in place, it just is a disaster.
And that's happened a lot, both on the church's side and on the ministry worker sides.
Absolutely.
Some of them get the cart before the horse.
And people being well on both sides of the equation.
Yeah.
Sometimes a person coming into a new ministry setting may just assume that a lot of the willingness is already there. It's not even been thought about yet. So they start making changes and it doesn't go well.
Yeah. What are some of the differences, kind of talking just in that same arena, that you've seen from the traditional churches you have served and then here at Northside? Are they pretty similar feeling, or are they just vastly different ways about going and doing things?
Of course, I've always been a Baptist background. So obviously Northside is going to have a different flavor from that.
Yeah.
So that's been, for me, on a personal level, some shifting of thinking, which has been fine.
Yeah.
My guess is that Northside is going to have to deal with some of the same kinds of things that most existing churches are having to deal with.
Yeah.
I do get the feel that there is a growing awareness that that's true. That's encouraging.
Yeah.
I remember dealing with the search committee years ago, and in the first conversation I had with them, their line to me was, well, we're looking for a pastor who will just allow us to be the way we are. We don't want to change anything. Okay, good luck with that.
Right.
That ended our relationship before it got started.
You talk about that, about people, having to make that mind shift. And like Kevin said, we talked a lot about generations, and a lot of times it's easy to kind of blame the older generation thing.
Oh, no.
It has nothing to do with age.
That's
because
correct.
I've caught myself in that sometimes too, because, I've grown up here. And so there are some things that I didn't realize that I had quite so much an attachment to because they're more sentimental to me because I grew up with them. But, it's taken me some shifting, and, I think I still hold the record of youngest staff member. So, but I noticed that I struggle with that too, and just making that mind shift that it's why we're doing what we're doing, not exactly how we're doing or what we're doing.
That's correct.
It's why we're doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've known 80-year-olds just whatever we need to do, I'm on board,
Yeah.
And then I've known 20-year-olds that, well, that's the way I've always known it. And we take ownership of things.
Yeah.
It has an upside, but it's better to hold things sort of lightly and see where God's working now and go with that, as opposed to just, we've always done it that way, so we're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I still find it a little bit interesting that people follow Jesus, study Jesus, learn about him, and still are shocked that they have to do something different in their life. Yeah, I've yet to figure out where in VBS, Sunday school, youth group, adult seminary, that you heard somewhere along the way that Jesus is just going to make you only better and you're only going to get sweeter. But the thing is, he changes our whole life. He messes with every inch of our life.
Well, and some of that has to do with how the invitation to be a Christ follower is presented. If it's come to Jesus, punch your ticket to heaven, you're good to go, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
And if you kind of get interested in it and want to get more serious about it, great, but you've done what's important.
Yeah.
That was never the invitation of Jesus.
Yeah.
Never. And once people begin to understand that becoming a follower of Jesus is a countercultural, radical, different way of living than the world, that messes with you.
Yeah.
And so one of the great axioms that I believe in is what you reach people with, you reach them to. If you reach them with, come to church, we're going to do all this stuff for you. That's what their sense of what church is about.
Yeah.
But if you reach them with, come join us on mission in the world to bring a bit more of the kingdom of God's will being done on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah.
That changes the whole thing.
Yeah. I like that. That's good stuff.
Well, I love that. That's very inclusive, because to me, a lot of times in my past, whether it's different congregations and relationships that have been broken in the context of church, it doesn't always feel like a safe place.
Yes, sometimes it isn't.
Because of, it's a club, or it's maybe not intentionally that way, but people that have known each other, have really close relationships, but can tend to be exclusionary in that way. But what you're talking about is really an invitation to be relational. I'm a big proponent of trauma-informed care and a lot of different things, and I'm learning a lot about that. But if you don't feel safe in a setting, then that's going to impact pretty much everything that you think and do and whatever. And so how are we creating those safe relationships for people who are interested, may have a fertile soil ready for the seed, but are just looking for a place? They might even not know they're looking for that.
Correct. I think the place to start is the relationship that we have with God first. And as that is deepening, it empowers us to have more redemptive relationships with people. I think it was Mother Teresa who once told her group, I may not quote this exactly right, we have too much to do not to spend the first hour of the day in prayer. Because she realized that the capacity to be able to give oneself to others is only going to be available to you if you first given yourself fully to God.
Well, and I think about it too, when you have a relationship with someone that's healthy, in this case, a relationship with God, it brings a different sense of awareness. Because when you feel safe, your guard kind of comes down.
You don't make it about yourself.
Exactly. It is others focused.
Yes, for the sake of others.
And that is where we can take our relationship with God into all situations we find ourselves in.
That is correct.
It could be in the grocery store. It could be, I like to think of little things like taking a cart that's in the middle of the parking lot that would hit someone's car.
Yeah.
Just taking it to the cart park thing, those little things. But it's that kind of awareness that changes lives, and many times without you even being aware of it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so that's where a lot of power comes in. And circles back to the example you gave earlier, where the life has been changed and it becomes appealing, something people want to find out about.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good stuff. What are some of your hobbies? What do you like to do when you're not ministering?
I have enjoyed time to be able to work in the yard.
Yeah.
Not so much in the heat. I really liked it in the spring more.
Right.
I used to like trading cars. In our church in North Carolina, we had a church member who was a general manager at a dealership, and I could get a car right to, $500 over, wholesale price.
Yeah.
So it'd be embarrassing if I told you how many cars I've bought and sold over the years.
Oh, wow. Sounds like a future podcast episode.
Yeah, there we go. Brian's Cars.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, my goodness. It's unbelievable. I like reading thriller novels.
Okay.
So those are kind of fun.
Cool.
Well, one of my questions was about, because I like to read, I was going to ask, who are some authors that you like to read? What are some book recommendations that you would give?
Well, the author that's had the biggest impact on me is probably John Ortberg. And I know that his more recent histories had some struggles, but that doesn't discount the depth and the value of the things he brings to the table in terms of trying to understand what it means to be a follower of Jesus, spiritual formation kinds of issues. He makes it very accessible, understandable, and yet profound at the same time. He's one person. Trevor Hudson is another author that I found to be very powerful. Dallas Willard, Although you've got to have time to read Dallas Willard because
That's true.
It takes a while to go, no, what? So that's another one. Bible study wise, I've always enjoyed John Stott, who is deceased now, but he was an Anglican pastor, but very gifted at exposition and being able to debate contrary viewpoints graciously. And I always appreciate that.
The Ortberg book, If You Want to Walk on Water, You Got to Get Out of the Boat.
That's a good one.
Is one of my favorite books of all
Soul
time.
Keeping is probably my favorite one.
Yeah.
Or the Me I've Always Wanted to Be or something like that. I think that's the name of it.
Yeah, I've always loved that story of Peter walking on water, and Ortberg does a good job with that whole story and everything. And it's just, man, it is challenging to get beyond.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a good book. Well, cool. What kind of music besides Glenn Miller?
Yeah. Yeah, good joke there. I got you. Well, strangely, I've always enjoyed choral music.
Oh, okay.
When Clella was the music pastor at our church, because we were, due to financial things, a staff person down, and we were trying to carry the educational work and the music ministry and the pastoral ministry with two of us. One of the jobs that I took on was previewing choral music that the choir might do.
Yeah.
Man, I love doing that.
Oh, cool.
Just being able to hear what was being produced, what was out there. And so that still to today, you know, a great choral piece will really move my soul.
I bet Ray would use all kinds of help getting ready for like deciding which
Yeah.
Christmas cantata to do.
Yeah, one of the things I've got to be careful about is making too many suggestions. Because I got ideas, you know.
Yeah. How difficult is it to be an interim? We had a young man come by the church the other day, and I introduced him to you, and I made the joke of, you know, he's the interim, but you know, he likes to do all this reading. your office is bare. I mean, there's nothing in there. Yeah. So, I mean, you don't have all your tools maybe there because it is a short term, but have you ever done an interim position?
No, this is the first time I've done that.
So you may not know the answer fully to that question.
Well, you know, I would flip the question over. In some respects, it's easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Because everybody knows, well, he's not going to be here. So you have a little bit more permission, I think, to address things that maybe would be more challenging if you're going to be here permanently. And coming out of the congregation already, when people know me, you know, I had some relational capital built with people, so that's helped a lot and given me already a sense of kind of the vibe of Northside. And so people have been super affirming and encouraging in this first month that I've been doing this. And it's been nice to be back in that rhythm, you know, coming in, preparing, and I enjoy the preaching and teaching piece enormously. Yeah. And yet I know that I have a sense that the season for full-time stuff, that season's over. Sure. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we sure do appreciate you taking the time and getting out of the dugout and coming up onto the playing field with us once more. We do appreciate that. So
it's been my honor.
So we've had Brian with us today, and he's going to be here serving with us as interim until that time period is over. And and we got someone else that can come and join the team full time. And so
looking forward to that.
Just thank you. Yeah. I think we're all looking forward to kind of completing the package and moving forward here.
Good days ahead. That's what I'm anticipating.
So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, that got a little deeper than I expected it to. So that's good, though.
I threw it in the deep end.
That was good. Those are good.
I'm going to have to look up some of those authors. I didn't know all of those names. So,
and I didn't know all of I knew a bunch of them. Yeah. I thought you were going to say I had to look up some of those words he used. I wasn't sure. So.
No, I think I knew most of the actual words that he used.
Good. It's nice to have Brian come down and do this. He was like, "Y'all, this is great. I want, you know." So he thought it was fun. He was ready to promote us.
Yeah, he was trying to give us some
marketing tips.
Marketing tips on how to get it out to more people. So.
He can be our tour manager.
I'm totally down.
So yeah, it was fun.
He did validate that we need a little more decoration in here, though.
Yeah, he did.
I like that he called it institutional. That's the right descriptor for this room.
This makes it so perfect. That was really funny, though. Well, we're glad to have Brian helping us out, and it's nice when you have people from the church family who have a certain set of skills, and they were willing to use those for short term. Yeah. Well, I bet there are people that are listening that have a certain set of skills and a certain set of all kinds of wonderful gifts and talents. And Patrick, you probably have a list of things that are coming up that they could use those on. Yeah. So what we got?
Well, no matter what your skill set is, we are in the middle of green sheets right now. We kicked that off on Sunday. So make sure you pick up a green sheet, or you get on your app or get on the website and fill out those green sheets. We always like to know where people want to plug in and what your skills are, and like to be able to help you find your place.
Now, weren't Scantrons green back in the day?
Yes.
What if we just had the little thing and you filled out a Scantron sheet and get this run it through the...
I would probably actually prefer that.
It might be triggering, though, for some.
Yeah, some people might have some flashbacks. And
I really don't like the standardized test.
I remember we had Scantrons in high school, and there was only like one reader in the whole building, because evidently it was pretty expensive probably. So if you were like a good enough kid, you could go grade the test by running them through the machine and then bring them back, and the teacher would tell you your grade. But yeah, Scantron sheets, that made an appearance when I was in high school.
See, I don't know. Maybe we didn't have that brand, because I thought I remembered like a purple one and some other colors.
Now, we had those in college.
Maybe that was it.
That had like a Scantron, and then had like a little book or just a notebook paper in the back to write for the essay questions. We had those in college, But yeah, green sheets and Scantron, that would be good.
Yeah.
Purple was my color because mimeograph sheets.
Yeah, they smelled so good.
You're dating yourself.
I am for sure.
So green sheets are here.
Yes. And then tomorrow is Wednesday, and we kick off our new Wednesday night lineup.
Wow.
Yes. So what is that? 5:00 is dinner, and then 6:15 is activities for all ages. It's going to be youth, children, Bible studies, choir practice, which I've got to put in a plug for choir practice. Tomorrow, August 9th, they're going to start practicing for the Christmas cantata. So if you have a passion for singing, or if you just, like to make a joyful noise, you can join the choir. No experience needed. You can contact Ray if you have any questions, but they're going to kick that off. Those choir practices are going to be at 6:15 on Wednesday nights. So if you want to sing in the Christmas cantata with the choir, then go to the sanctuary at 6:15.
On Wednesday nights, is there an ending time, or is it
just whenever?
Well, I will tell you we really want you to come pick up your youth about 7:30.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
so. Around 7:30 would be perfect time to end your youth time.
Got it.
Yeah, we're putting a start time on it, but I don't think we're putting a hard end time on anything. So if people want to keep going, I think, because especially with the Christmas cantata, Ray may keep people longer. So choir practice.
What if I can't sing really good, but I'm a really good beatboxer? Do you think they need?
I'm sure he will find a place for you.
We have an opening I can plug you into. I know of an opportunity.
And then on Sunday, August 13th, coming up, Brian's, like he mentioned earlier, is going to start his new series, Jesus Shaped People. So that'll be good. Also on August 13th at 10 a.m. in the Hope Hall Kitchen serving area, we're going to do coffee with the pastors. So if you're new to Northside, or if you've been visiting for a while, or you just want to get to have a little meet and greet with the pastors, get to know them a little better, let them get to know you a little bit better, that's going to be 10 o'clock a.m. in the Hope Hall Kitchen serving area. And then next week on the podcast, we're going to have the one and only Millie Hayes on with us to share her.
Millie who?
Millie Hayes.
I know Millie Cagle, but I don't know Millie Hayes.
It's the same person.
What?
Is she related to that? Isn't there a country singer, Hayes?
Hunter Hayes. Yep. I'm sure they're related.
Oh, somehow. I think she's a cousin to Millie Vanilli.
Oh.
Or what about Camille?
Nobody knows who Camille is.
That's Tennille. Tony and Tennille.
Oh, Tennille. Yeah.
Tony and Camille.
Camille was like her Chris Gaines period.
Yes,
right?
that's her
Gaines
pop
thing.
side project.
Okay,
yes.
all right, I wasn't sure.
When we talked about Chris Gaines a while back, I went back on that rabbit.
No, you did not.
Trail. I did.
Garth Brooks
and I did not remember the VH1 mockumentary about Chris Gaines.
Oh, really?
Did you see that?
I don't. I remember it being
the whole
a thing.
VH1 behind the music,
but I don't think I ever watched it.
I don't think I have mentioned to you guys. I think I may have told y'all we had several folks listen to the
summer
playlist, the summer playlist, and several people were talking about it, saying, "Hey, thanks for putting out," and then sending in some suggestions about which ones they needed to add and different things. I thought it was really funny. So thanks for the comments on the the summertime playlist. It was really fun. Hope we didn't miss your favorite.
Yeah.
Might have been a Chris Gaines on there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, tangent aside, next week we're going to have Millie Hayes on the podcast to tell us her life story. So, guys, thanks for podcasting with me.
Sure.
Thanks to all of you out there in the world for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at Northside Now Podcast. Go to our website, northsidejackson.com, or email us at podcast@northsidejackson.com. We hope to hear from you soon. Once again, this is Patrick.
This is Glenn.
I'm Kevin.
And that's what's happening at Northside Now.
Bye-bye.